Hello everyone. Today we will have two interesting stories. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics in the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail. Broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now, let's go. Hello, I want to tell you my story. I am 40 years old. My wife is 32 years old. We've been married for 15 years. We didn't live so badly, but there was often not enough money. There have never been any particular problems. We have an apartment, a car, everything we need for life. My wife is a very active person in life. She loves parties and all that stuff. That's why I've had problems with her before. We had conflicts, sometimes reaching fights, but we didn't cheat on each other. There was a time in my life when I drank a lot of alcohol, but this rarely happened. At the same time, I didn't cheat on my wife, but that was all before. At the moment, I've not been drinking or smoking for 8 years. But about a year ago, I started noticing my wife's strange actions. Something has changed in our relationship. My wife began to stay at work often. One day, my wife didn't even stay home for the night. We had a huge scandal. My wife said she spent the night with her friend. We ignored each other that day. I am furious. I have checked this information. She was at her best friend's. But obviously her friend wouldn't tell me the truth. But that's not the worst of it. My wife started drinking a lot of alcohol. And sometimes my wife was very drunk. But mostly it happened at home or at her best friend's place. Naturally, I fought it as best I could. But thank God she didn't do anything inappropriate. This summer, my wife, my 2 children, and I went to the ocean. Another family was vacationing there with us. Their family also has a husband, wife, and 2 children. I want to look ahead a bit. My wife was very diligent in communicating with this family. Eventually, she started spending time with someone else's husband. I don't think they've had sex yet. My wife works in a casino. In general, I began to notice that something was wrong in our relationship. I will not describe my thoughts. But I will say one thing, there were a lot of suspicions. I bought a small voice recorder to listen to my wife's mobile phone. In this, I was not mistaken. My wife got into a conversation with a guy she met on the ocean. The guy was from another city. Moreover, my wife's communication has gone too far in a month. My wife started crying and said she really wanted to come to him. My wife really missed this guy. I also find out that this guy came to my wife. So that you understand, it is 700 km away from us. My wife and this guy were spending time together. In general, complete shit. Maybe they've already had sex. I was just shocked. The world has turned upside down. I didn't want to live. I made a big scandal. My wife promised me not to date this guy anymore. She said there was no intimacy between them. She said it was a mistake and so on. I believed my wife and forgave her. For 2 weeks, we lived like in paradise. Love has taken over our relationship, but it seemed so to me. The sex we had was just wonderful. A week later, my wife says she needs to go to the city where this guy lives. My wife justified this by saying that she needed to undergo a medical examination. My wife had problems in the women's sphere. At the same time, our female neighbor is going there with my wife. She is 58 years old, and she is a doctor. The fact that this guy lived in this city immediately confused me, but my wife said that there are the best doctors there. The old sins are over, and the female neighbor of 58 years is leaving with my wife. I thought about it and still let my wife go. First of all, I was thinking about my wife's health. I gave my wife money for expenses and she left. The trip was designed for 1 day. My wife called me, wrote messages, confessed her love, and so on. In general, nothing foreshadowed trouble. I decided to listen to my wife's mobile phone again. I was shocked. My wife went to the city to visit this guy. She spent time with him despite our female neighbor and our 2-week paradise. Upon arriving home, my wife denied everything. But after the evidence, I announced it was pointless to deny it. My wife confessed that she was dating this guy, but she had coffee with him at the train station. Because our neighbor, a strict girl, did not give my wife the opportunity to be with this guy for some time. In general, we have a strong scandal again. My wife begged me to believe her, that she didn't have sex with this guy. We went to church, and my wife swore before God that she didn't have sex with anyone but me. I loved my wife very much. That's why I forgave her this time too. The next 2 weeks were like heaven again. At work, my wife was promoted to administrator. My wife is going to work to master a new position. To be honest, I didn't want to listen to her phone recordings anymore. Because after everything I've been through, I didn't think about the bad anymore. But the interest is growing, and I'm listening to my wife's mobile phone again. But my trust has already been undermined by my wife's past actions. I start listening and get furious. I hear the familiar dialogue again. I miss you so much. It was that guy again. I was just furious, called, and told my wife everything. But my wife started denying everything. My wife said I set it up because she wasn't talking to anyone. I just want to destroy our family. I was shocked by what I heard, but I understood that she was blatantly lying to me. I do not know what to do now. Apart from the divorce, I can't think of anything else. That's why I filed for divorce. My wife begged me for forgiveness. It seems to me that I made the right choice, but what do you think? Write your comment. It seems to me that I'm one of those horned deer who has forgiven his wife more than once. I pay alimony and spend time with the kids. I haven't found my soulmate yet. That's the whole story. Before we move on to the opinion of the author of the channel, we will have a second short story. Let's go. I am 39 years old. My wife is 35 years old. We have 2 daughters. One is 7 years old and the other is 15 years old. My wife quit her job for unknown reasons. She stayed at home for a long time. My wife got bored and started eating my brains out. I tell my wife to find a job in accordance with her interests and get involved in life. I bought my wife a car. My wife has been dreaming about her own car for a very long time. After a while, my wife found a job as a secretary. She worked for a small firm. My wife's salary was minimal. Well, I think, okay, she needs to start somewhere. A little about the past. We bought a house and equipped it for life. After buying the house, we lived only on my salary and paid off the loan. I worked overtime to create favorable conditions for the family. My wife took care of the children at home. 2 months later, my wife was working at a new job. She often complained about her boss. My wife said that he has sex with all the girls at work and he has many children from different wives. My wife's boss is 40 years old. My wife can't stand him. Since he constantly makes fun of her and asks her to make coffee, I tell my wife I can talk to him. I ask my wife to quit this job. My wife replies to me that she will talk to him in a rude way. Because the team is very good and my wife didn't want to leave. But I took my wife at her word. 2 months later, I ask my wife how she's doing at work. My wife tells me that everything is fine. My wife began to stay at work often. My wife started coming home drunk. At the same time, she was driving a car. She tells me that the boss turned out to be a good person. The weather in our house has become very bad. We haven't had sex in a very long time. My wife is angry and constantly arranges conflict. I decided to talk to my wife. I ask, what's going on? Do you have anyone? My wife replies that she has no one. She's just having a crisis, that things will get better over time. I realized that my wife was lying to me. I decide on extreme measures that many will find dirty. I'm tapping my wife's mobile phone. On the first day, I immediately heard a lot of interesting things for myself. My wife is drinking again. As soon as my wife got home, a guy calls her and asks how she got home. My wife replies that everything is fine and kisses him. I was shocked. The second day, the guy starts a heart-to-heart conversation with my wife and reminds her how they had sex for the first time. I heard everything in great detail. I was furious. I also want to say that my wife should have surgery. I make a scandal and say that I know everything. Tears, screams, snot. My wife said she had sex with him for love. My wife's lover turned out to be her boss. Yes, the same boss. Anyway, the next morning I take my wife to the hospital. I'm not going to disconnect her phone from listening. My head is a mess. I wanted to eat the earth. My wife went into surgery. I didn't start a showdown before the operation. I said that after that we will put the dots. I came home and made an appointment with my wife's lover. Arrogant fool. Apart from his penis and money, he can't give anything else. Family and another newborn son are more important. By the way, the boss's new wife previously worked in my wife's place. Before they had a baby, I wanted to smash his face, but I restrained myself. A couple of days later, I find out that the boss went to the hospital to visit my wife. That is, after I left. My wife's boss showed up right away. I told my wife not to have sex with him until we resolved the issue of divorce. I've had time to think it over. I am an owner and I love my children. I felt very sorry for my children, especially my little girl. After a long showdown, we decided to divorce, but we still live together. I thought I could accept and forgive my wife. What a fool. We got the divorce papers. While we were living together, my wife humiliated me in front of her friends. But my wife swears to me that she loves me. She just made a mistake. My wife is waiting for action from the boss. But he's silent. I tell her, what a fool you are. I feel very bad because I love her. I don't even know why I love my wife. Maybe it's a sense of ownership. We have been divorced for 2 years and lived together. Life is like hell. Memories often come back to me, or new suspicions appear again. My self-esteem has dropped to zero. I'm suffering, but I can't leave. My brain understands that I need to leave, but my heart says otherwise. What should I do? Give advice and write in the comments. That's the whole story. If you liked it, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Now let's move on to the opinion of the author of the channel. The opinion of the author of the channel. By tradition, I wish strength to our guys. I will repeat it again and again until the guys in our world stop repeating mistakes. Don't forgive your wives for cheating. Girls who feel someone else's balls near their ass, they will repeat it over and over again. This cannot be avoided if you think she's reformed. Or after that, you will control your wife. No, it doesn't work that way. A guy who lives with his wife after a divorce. God, get away from your wife and start a new life. Why are you torturing yourself? Yes, I understand that you feel sorry for your children, but no one tell you to leave the kids. No way! Spend time with children and help financially. But start a new life. Yes, it is very difficult, but when you pass this test, you will find happiness. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.